Hey, hello. Happy Monday evening. Welcome to CouchCasters, man. I'm your host, Jeff. It's your co-host, Scott. Co-host, Hunter. What's up, boys? Roll Tide. Welcome to the show. What's up, fellas?
Not much. A lot of bad football these past few weeks. I'm sure
A lot of bad football. You're right. Hey, I will say, no longer strangers in person. It was nice to meet you guys in person at Parker's wedding. He's joining us shortly, but Parker got married. For those of you who don't know, a few weeks ago, Parker got married, and we were all happened to be in attendance. So we got to hang out in person for the first time. We didn't get a picture for some dumb reason. I don't know.
I'm so bad about that
picture.
I thought about it later, and I was like, "Dang, man, we didn't even get a picture of everybody together." Speaking of Parker, what's up, dude?
Gentlemen,
just talking about how we all got to meet for the first time in person. Well, not you and me, but me and Hunter and Cam and Scott got to meet for the first time in person. So that was kind of fun hanging out. Scott, your wife's very nice. She's a nice lady.
She's a nice lady.
She's a nice lady. Yeah. Anyway, so Parker, man, we just hadn't really got into much. We just kind of ran the intro, and now we're getting into. Here we are, man. Start of 2025 season. Keelan Russell moved on campus today, so that's a win. We got a lot of guys in the portal, but zero defensive starters.
Screenshot that he took or whatever when he was
driving.
Yeah, did you see how fast he was going?
Yeah, 89 miles per hour.
Yeah, and someone quoted it and said, "Buddy, this is Tuscaloosa. It ain't Athens." So already taking the shots.
Well, actually, that's quite slow to be driving in Athens. If you're only doing 90, you're going to get run down. So you better inch that sucker up.
I've ripped down 20 a few times. A little quicker than that. I mean,
I did make good time coming home from the game Saturday, I must admit.
Yeah.
Until we got hit in that wreck. We got stuck in a wreck on the interstate coming home, and we sat there for, I don't know, an hour plus, just dead stopped. So it took us about 4 hours to get home instead of 2. And hey, we were sitting on the interstate, weren't going anywhere. 3 lanes, nobody's going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Ambulance, fire truck, ambulance, cop, fire truck, going by on the shoulders, lights flashing. I'm like, oh, this is a bad wreck up here.
Did you say
we're not going anywhere
on the interstate or 82?
No, this is interstate. I took 59, 459, 65. It's the same drive time. I just like interstate driving better unless you hit that mess. But I just sat in my car when my son watched his videos. I watched the Steeler game on my phone. I just propped it up in the steering wheel. Watched the Steeler game on my phone because I had it, plugged in through the car speakers. So it was, so at least I got to watch that. Not, didn't get rewarded for it, but. Yeah, so at least I got to do something to pass the time away, but it was a long time sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good win.
Indeed. Can't go wrong with the win.
Yeah. Parker broadcasting from his new studio.
Broadcast, yeah, somewhat, I guess. It's still got to work on a couple things, but we'll get it there eventually. But yes, new studio, new home, new house, newly married man, a lot of responsibilities, still learning many things. Yeah.
A lot of news in 25.
That's right.
Yeah. A lot of news. New quarterbacks, new receivers, some new linemen, new coaches. How about all the Ryan Grubb momentum?
Thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was actually just what I was about to roll into here.
Yeah.
So do you know the crazy thing about that was he was fired today, right?
Yes.
1 year ago today, he was making his announcement saying he was going to be the offensive coordinator for the University of Alabama.
That was a year ago today?
A year ago today. Crazy. I know.
That's nuts.
And you look at it and you're like, okay, do we want that? I have no will towards the guy, all right? He took a job where, if you get an NFL job, you get a chance to do that. I'd be hard pressed to let that slip up, that's just the way the game is. Now, I don't know how bad the Seahawks were this year.
I got to get on a pedestal about them firing him for a minute.
So I really don't know.
I can't believe they fired him.
I thought he did okay. I thought the Seahawks did okay this year.
I was shocked. that they fired him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know enough on that because I don't watch enough NFL.
Go ahead, Scott.
He just got scapegoated.
Yeah.
So quickly. Their offensive line was horrible. They hired a pass-heavy, pro-style offensive coordinator. And then they were upset when he was throwing the ball 40 or 60% of the time. And I froze. That's great.
That's all right. We can still hear you.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's just ridiculous. I have no idea why they fired him at this.
I don't either.
Geno
Smith had his career season.
Yeah. I mean, he was good. They turned the ball over a lot. That's not necessarily his fault. Now, here's my thing. He very well may come to Alabama. He very well may not. I don't know. I'd love to have him, but at the same time, I don't know how I feel about hiring a guy that may only be here for one more year. I think he was successful enough in the NFL that another team could come knocking.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a head coach very quickly at the college level as well. So that's a different discussion. But anyway, I'm just shocked.
I'm glad you made that statement about
very
the 1 year
premature.
Thing. Yeah.
Yes.
But
that shocked me.
I'm just shocked.
I'll always ask this too. If you go into it with that kind of idea or mindset with being the 1 year, I was like, well, you go into that with players nowadays too in college. So I mean, I don't really see the difference when it comes to that. At least
if you're successful, I mean, you saw it with Saban. You know, when we were winning rings. I mean, the staff was getting poached every year, and it would always be right before the playoffs. We would lose somebody, or they'd be interviewing as we were approaching playoff games, and the timing of everything is just whacked, man. I don't like the timing of everything. With the portal going on while the portal opening while there's still playoff games going on. I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, the timing of all this is just asinine to me.
Yeah, I mean I think it was a little thing that I heard from I don't know. Y'all probably do. Y'all watch a lot more NFL than I did. But EJ Manuel, former NFL quarterback, former Florida State quarterback, early 2010s. His philosophy on it, and I can actually tend to agree with this. He's like, how can you allow that to happen? And it happened in Alabama last year. Just poaching. I mean, not like it, but just free range, picking players while there's teams still competing for games. I was like, it puts you at such a disadvantage. And I'm not just putting Alabama in that position, but Michigan's the same way. When Harbaugh left, how many players got poached from that team, and so on and so forth. If Ryan Day were to win the national championship this year, and he were to go and take a job from a couple of the rumblings I've heard, maybe Chicago, if that were to happen, it's free reign picking from Ohio State. So you just spend $25 million into this roster, and it's gone. Like that. So
I saw one news story. I don't know if there's any validity to it, but people were even trying to go after Quinn Ewers to stay another year and get paid that way. It's like, man's not even done with the season yet. He's still in the playoffs.
It's like they're still got games going, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to win games still, correct?
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. I was like, it needs to be. I think the portal window, if we're going to keep it this way, needs to open up after the final, the national championship game. That's where it's everybody's got a free shot at it.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. No ifs and buts. If you're out, you're out, and you just have to sit and wait.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the many issues of the can of worms that came out when they opened all this stuff up. And you're not going to be able to go back and fix it. You can try and put regulations and whatnot to kind of curtail it, but you ain't getting the can, the what was in the can. You ain't getting it back in there. So, we've talked about that time and time again. But I digress. As far as I do have a question for all of y'all. As far as I really don't know really much on the bowl games, but let's talk about the playoffs. Impressed, underimpressed, happy with some of the results? Tell me what you're feeling.
It's been a bit underwhelming as a viewer with the majority of them ending in blowouts. and I was a little bit surprised, but I guess in hindsight, not too surprised from each of the teams that won their conference championship are no longer in it.
Oh, they had the auto bids or something like that. The buys.
Yeah. And the question now is, does that extra bye week almost hurt you? It doesn't even really matter when Ohio State practically got a bye week in itself because they didn't go to their conference championship. So, like, does it really matter?
Of those top 4 teams that got the auto bids, 2 of them were non-favorites in their games to begin. I agree. I see where you're coming from, and actually do agree with it to an extent. However, there's no way in heck you can tell me that Boise State and Arizona State deserved to have buys because they won their conference. If you're just going to do that, you should have given it to Clemson or someone of that nature. Now, Arizona State, that's a little more understanding because they're in the Big 12. But Boise State had a fabulous year. Yeah, it was great. Good year.
In Georgia's defense, they were on their QB too. I mean,
and they were.
Well, there's another reason that conference championship game is worthless because Georgia was going regardless, and they lost their quarterback.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have to play that game, and they were going to the playoffs, but they played it. They had to play it, and then they lost their quarterback. And say what you will about Beck, I thought this other guy would give him a better chance to win, but he was clearly overmatched.
Well, I mean, that was the second game. Sorry, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I was just saying Georgia just got bullied in that game.
Yeah.
That was probably the most impressive thing with their Notre Dame's defense. That's probably the most impressed I've been with them in a long time.
They come a long way since
the first year I've been kind of skeptical about saying that Notre Dame just isn't that good or didn't deserve to be there. I mean, they slipped up early, but they really ran through their schedule. They're very consistent.
That coach seems to be pretty
onto the
legit.
ball. And defense just smacks you in the mouth.
I like Marcus Freeman.
Ohio State and Notre Dame in the national championship.
Oh, I agree. I think it's going to be Ohio State and Notre Dame.
I do like Marcus Freeman. He did make me laugh how he kind of blew off Cignetti after they waxed Indiana. Or whoever it was they beat.
Yep, it was Indiana.
Was it Indiana? Yeah, because Cignetti was running all that yap before the game, and Notre Dame beat their ass, and then he just kind of, he shook his hand at the end of the game, and Cignetti was saying something to him, but he was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man. See ya.
Yeah. Good talking to you. Enjoy the ride home.
Yeah. You're in my way.
You're in my way. Get out of my way. All right, on to the next
So I
game.
laughed at Freeman when I saw that. I was like, hey, man, maybe the guy got some swag, some swag to him and some swagger to him, and the Notre Dame's fault. I think it's funny that he's in the semifinals and Brian Kelly hadn't made the playoffs yet.
He never will.
Yeah, but who was shocked by that? Like that's who he is.
I thought Notre Dame did make the playoff with Brian Kelly.
I mean, they played in the championship. Did they? What year did they make the playoff? Was it the 14 playoff they made it?
2020.
I was about to say they made it in 2020. We played him, but I don't know. I don't know. Was he still the coach there, or he'd already gone to LSU?
No, he was still the coach that year.
There. There's one other time, like in 17 or 18, they made.
Oh yeah, that's when Najee hurdled that dude.
In 20. Yep.
That was 20. That's right. Okay.
I think it was in 18 because we were watching. Cameron and I were down in Miami, and we were watching us play. We were playing Oklahoma, and Notre Dame was playing Clemson, and Clemson absolutely beat the dog crap out of them with Trevor Lawrence. And then, of course, Clemson absolutely beat the dog crap out of us in the national title game that year too. So that was a really great feeling. Yeah. Talk about how I feel like we didn't deserve to be on the same field that night. Yeah, that was one of those feelings.
That was a rough night.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that was a rough night. I will give you that.
I mean, we've wrapped up to the end of the season here, guys, and a lot can be said. A lot of things, a lot of wanting more to see a better result, and obviously it kind of ended up being what we thought it was going to be. I think a couple of us said at the beginning of the year, high point could have been 11-1, low point 8-4. We ended up going 9-3 and then losing the bowl game. Honestly, I wasn't too upset really with the bowl game. I was just more upset, or with the loss in the bowl game, more so upset that we didn't get a lot of younger guys in there to play when it mattered most. And
I have a theory on some of that.
I mean, because and y'all know me, I'm a stat guy, and I'll get down to it on a couple of the stats here on Jalen Milroe's career stats as a starter. Some of the numbers you're going to look at and you're like, really? But if you have been watching him and watching Alabama football for the last 2 years consistently, some of the things you'll not be surprised on, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I guess really I want to get y'all's opinions on just like the conference as a whole this year, how it held up. There's been more so people talking about how, the SEC dominance is over. Well, we're looking at 2 years in a row where we haven't, as a conference as a whole, done very well in our bowl games. Now, can you blame that on the era we're in? Possibly, but I don't know. I mean, what's y'all take on how Alabama fared toward the end of the year, how they ended up being, and how the conference did? What do y'all think?
I mean, it's going to happen with every conference. And yeah, I've been in a lot of those conversations, and it grinds my gears how the Big Ten acts like they've been national champions for the last 20 years, where before Michigan, what was the year Ohio State won it? It's like
14.
Yeah, 2014. So 10 years ago. Yeah, okay. The ACC has more national championships under their belt in the 2000s than the Big Ten.
That is also true, yes.
Yeah.
Won 2 with Clemson and 1 in Florida State in 13. Yeah.
I think the removal of divisions certainly had an effect across the SEC. Give Georgia the flowers. That yes, they did have a tough schedule, but let's be honest, they benefited from being on the SEC East for years.
Yes.
They finally had to play real teams, and that's why they claim, well, we had such a tough schedule.
Well,
Texas got the Georgia treatment this year.
It was, and I'm not going to knock that, but let's not, also admit that they didn't, get the cruise on the SEC East for years.
Oh, they did.
They would wrap up the East by like week 7 in years past.
Yeah.
I mean,
their only competitor was Florida, and Florida was dominant there for many years, but not now.
I don't know. I think the conference argument's just kind of played out and stupid at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
It's it's been this way for years. The top of the Big Ten can compete with anyone in the SEC year in and year out. The SEC has better teams top to bottom. That's just is how it is. Ohio State has a great roster this year, but that might not be the case next year. It's in the current era, like you said, Parker, I'm going to blame it a little bit on that. Teams are just gutted. They lose all their depth. I mean, who's that quarterback? He transferred from Oregon to Boise State, and now he's going to UTEP.
Oh, is that you mean the guy from USC, and then he went to Boise State? What's his name?
Dante.
I read it today. Yeah, and he lost out to Maddox, the QB that Boise State this year, Maddox Mosley or whatever his name is.
Anyway, just garbage like that is happening all over the place, and it just guts rosters, and teams are struggling with it. I think it's really hard, especially for Georgia that relies so much on rotating their defense. I mean, their front seven rotates and rotates and rotates. Well, all those guys are going and just playing it wherever else, going to Kentucky, going to Minnesota, I don't know, wherever, just to play. I mean, they're not becoming better football players or anything in some cases.
Right.
In a lot of cases, they just want the opportunities. I think the game's just in a poor state. I don't think it's a conference thing or a resource thing. Resources obviously matter for the top teams, but kids just value playing over anything, it seems, and that's their prerogative, but it hurts the sport, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
That's why you're seeing the transition to NFL too. Is like a lot of NFL teams have been complaining about the lack of, I guess, awareness or build on some of these younger players that are coming out into the
they're not fully developed.
They're not fully developed, and they're very raw talent.
Get rushed onto the field.
Exactly, and I mean, people have said this time and time again. I think Brady has said this, where your franchise guys don't need to be starting right out. Right out of college and going into and get thrown into the fire. How many burnouts have we seen first round quarterbacks go in and get thrown to the wolves, and they don't succeed? Well, one, maybe they just weren't put in a great position to succeed starting off. And once you start that downward spiral and you're in a very, very competitive league and your job is gone like that, you may not have gotten your shot. But now I would say it has to do with college, because players are not being developed, and it's because a lot of them are leaving and not getting any kind of stability. So many different coordinators, and there's nothing for them to continue to develop. It's just about, they just want to get on the field instead of honing in on their craft, becoming a better player. I mean, you pointed out the Boise State guy who's going to UTEP now. How about Jaden Rashada, who was at Florida, then transfers and was in that NIL lawsuit, was not getting paid his money from Florida. Then he goes to Arizona State and he doesn't play for them. I don't even think he actually technically enrolled. But then he goes to Georgia, and now he's in the portal again, and he's about to head to UTEP or UNLV or something crazy. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, nobody's actually even seen you on the field. We have no idea what kind of player you are.
Yeah.
I mean, what
keep doing it.
As an NFL guy, how can I take a risk on a guy I've never seen? He might have all the tangibles, but I've never seen it. I don't know what.
Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 4,
Yeah.
On special teams essentially. And it's like, I feel like that era is just gone. You're not going to see stacked rosters like that, even when you're 20 up like Ohio State.
Yes, it's hard. Yeah, I won't disagree with that.
I mean, not through high school recruiting.
Yeah,
I think Ohio State has a better roster this year than that team, which is probably crazy to say, but they are just
loaded.
But
they are loaded.
Just building on that and all these people leaving, like, you're gonna see the Big Ten's gonna have down years too. No one's gonna dominate this sport.
Right.
There's gonna be no dynasties. There's gonna be no nothing. You're gonna be interchanging the same 10 brands that are competing for it every year, and throwing morsels of hope at Baylor and TCU and Arizona State and all these other teams, and it's just gonna be bad until they figure out how to get these kids to stay somewhere and play the sport the right way, contribute to a team, develop themselves to put themselves in a situation to go to the NFL and succeed. I don't know. It's just a mess, and there's no solution.
There's not. I mean, and you know how irrelevant I think the NCAA is as a whole, as an organization, but they actually came out with something, I think it was maybe late last week, about how they were saying college athletes need 5 years of eligibility. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's fair, but guess what? You're a little late on this now. You're saying this after the fact when these kids are getting 9 years. The guy from Miami, like, that's insane. Now, I understand 5 or 6, and you have, you got red shirt, and then you had a medical red shirt. Okay. I get that. 5-6 years, that makes sense. 9 years, that crap's got to stop. The unlimited transfers, that's got to stop.
I probably hate it for the people, because now you put these people that are 18, now they have to wait until this 25-year-old eventually leaves.
Yep.
And then that causes him to stay there longer because he's wanting to build up his resume. And it's just a domino effect. So I hate it for the younger generations that while yes, they should sit and wait their turn, now feel the need to stay longer because some other guy ahead of them would refuse to leave.
Or if it's a transfer.
Yep.
I'm not waiting for that. And that's why I've kind of back to what you said, Fonzie, a few minutes ago about, the dynasty days are over. I've been preaching that on the Waaaay Offsides show since DeBoer got hired, that he is one of one in terms of what he's replacing. Because think about Nick Saban played for 9 championships in 17 seasons. That's one every other year. Okay. That will never happen again.
No.
Nobody will ever play for 9 rings in their 17-year career.
At a certain school, yeah.
Nobody's ever going to stay at one place that long anymore, I don't feel like. And in this landscape, you can't do that now. Because there's no depth. There's no, you don't build a team 3-4 years out like you used to be able to. Everything is 1 year rips, like basketball now. Every year you have 8-9 new players out of 12. And I'm not saying it'd be that high, but we had 21 players in the portal. Two starters out of 21. So all the backups are portaling. So there's no depth there. So that means all the backups next year are going to be freshmen. Or first year guys, so there's no experience there. There's no depth there. And nobody's ever going to do what Saban did again. So nobody has ever had to replace a guy that did that. And nobody's ever going to have to ever replace a guy that did that ever again. So it's like the expectations have to be curbed, and then a 9-4 season. Yes, that's a failure. We didn't make the playoffs. Not making the playoffs is a failure. I thought 9-4. I thought if you step back and look at it as a whole, considering lost 30 players, half your starting defense, replaced Nick Saban, lost your coordinator and your line coach, a week before spring started or whatever, whenever it was, whatever. I mean, it's just like, and then he had to play. He had to kind of coach with ease in the first year. He just had to kind of keep the ship on the train on the tracks. But then as soon as that clock hit 0 against Michigan, that loss, as soon as we hit 0, the second that clock hit 0, everything changed. When that hit 0, that was the end of anything DeBoer felt like he owed anyone for that transition year. Everything is new. Everything starts new right when that clock hit 0. There's no gimmies. There's no, Ty, you're QB1 now because you've been here the longest. I'm hoping it's no, everybody is at the bottom of the depth chart and every position is going to be earned now because he doesn't owe anyone anything now. And it's may the best man win. I hope. So considering 9-4, navigating through that, as a whole, not a bad season. Did we expect 4 losses? No, I think we all were pretty comfortable expecting 2. But it's the dynasty days are over. Like you said, Fonzie, like we're never going to see a guy play for 9 rings in 17 years. Think about that. There were 9 championships in 17 seasons.
I mean, even if the landscape was the exact same, we still probably wouldn't see that. I mean,
probably correct. You're right.
I don't know. I just think.
I think if the landscape was closer to the same, then I think Georgia would have continued to stockpile. Now they would have had the effect that Alabama had with, coaches, the coaching turnover and coaching carousel, people leaving. It would catch up to them maybe a little bit quicker than it did to Alabama. However, who knows? To your point, who knows what would have happened if it had stayed the same way? I mean,
for perspective, assuming the 17 years, Kirby would basically need to make the national championship every year but 2.
Yes, and be very, very difficult.
I just don't think, even if the landscape was the same, it'd be.
And they're going to expand the playoffs.
Really hard.
It's even more impossible.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
But back up, Fonzie. What were we going to say about DeBoer? I want to hear that.
I mean, I just building on what you said. I think it's, I think his era kind of starts now.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
In the sense that he's building his team now.
Completely agree.
He has no personalities to appease. I think keeping
Bingo.
Milroe around and letting him start, as much as people want to rip on Milroe or whatever, I think it was kind of essential in
Agreed.
keeping the team together. I think his job going into these next few years would be infinitely harder if he did not make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a lot of other issues outside of Milroe. But
Yes.
I think
Several.
DeBoer's very well aware of those, and I think he'll take care of them as well. But that's all I wanted to say. I just think, obviously Saban passed the torch, so it's easy to rip on DeBoer. It's not what people were used to, yada yada, whatever. But this is DeBoer's time now. It was very easy at the beginning of the season with how he kept the roster together to say that this team was going to succeed and do really well. It's not
They were flawed.
reality of college football, unfortunately, but I'm excited to see what kind of moves he makes.
I
going
agree.
forward with the staff in particular. And I think we're only looking up. Like, next year might be a little disappointing. Who knows?
I actually think next year's going to be very exciting. I think we're going to see a completely different kind of offense that we haven't seen yet, because I'm glad we brought it up about DeBoer keeping everybody together, starting Milroe, really kept the team together as much as he could, without, stepping on anybody's toes. Yeah, and I know I myself have ripped on him and I've ripped on Milroe, and I've also praised Milroe when he did well too. But, the facts are facts. And I said, I'm a stat guy, so I'll take a look, quick little snippet here. Milroe's stats as a starter. So we look back at when he became the starter in 23. Passing wise, he had completed 187 for 284. The completion percentage was 65.8%. He passed for 2,834 yards, 23 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He rushed for 161 carries, 531 yards, 12 touchdowns. Fumbles, he had 3, lost 2. Fast forward to this year, and the numbers, it started going back by this. He was at 64.3% on his completion percentage. That is literally 1.5% worse. And he attempted more passes and only got 10 more total yards at the end of the year. Now, he did rush for more yards, but at the end of the year, I was like, did it really even matter? I mean, he did rush for more touchdowns too. Passing, he was 205 for 319 for 64.3%. For 2,844 yards, he passed for 16 TDs and threw more interceptions, with 11 being there. Rushing, he had 7 more carries compared to 2023 season, 726 yards and 20 TDs. Here's the biggest factor, though. Fumbles. He had 9 and lost 6 of them. So it wasn't a good... looking at the end of it, he regressed. He did. In a scheme where maybe it probably didn't benefit him to where it needed to. However, some of it had to do was on his own decision making too, when he probably should have given the ball instead of keeping it. Reading out instead of trying to force a pass in there. It's just, when you look at it on the screen there, and here's what I'll say. I appreciate everything that Jalen Milroe did for Alabama. There were some times where, heck, we had the Iron Bowl last year and he won us that. He did. But on other times, he cost us games. And, I'm going to look at it with a little bit of an asterisk on his career. He's a great Bama player. There are plenty of great Bama players I have asterisks on, saying, what could have been, what could have been done differently. But he had his flaws while he was here. and things that it couldn't be improved on. Does that change when he goes to the NFL? I wish him the best. I hope he does really well. But I think this was it was a need of a change, and I'm glad he's going to the. I'm glad he declared to go to the NFL. I wish him nothing but the best, but I think it's best on everybody's side that we all move forward from this experience. That's to put it lightly, but those are some stats for y'all.
Well, we can. I'm just gonna say this. We can talk about the stats, and I agree he did regress this year, but the play calling is these results that you just showed are a result of play calling. He was facing stacked box constantly. He's not a great decision maker. I'll say that flat out, but you're giving him quick one-read passes constantly. You're making him read the defense constantly with read options. You're not using his strengths. The only designed run plays are that stupid whatever the hell where they move half the offensive line outside and then he just pushes behind them. I mean, on one hand I agree, but on the other it's like, what do you expect when you're watching the games and you see what's going on with the play calling and stuff? I mean, we never established the run game in this offense.
We did not.
Outside of maybe the
You're
first
right.
3 games, and when they did that, we were,
But him missing just
being
wide
USF.
open people who were not even just literally just beaming down the field, and we've seen it time and time again, and we just.
I'm not going to argue that Jalen Milroe is some god that just. Our eyes deceived us, but every college quarterback does that. College quarterbacks are not good quarterbacks. I'm just going to say it outright. Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, you can name the guys in the past 10 years on one hand that were truly great college quarterbacks. Carson Beck does this all the time. Quinn Ewers does it every damn game.
And guess what? I don't think either of them
considered
are
a top
very
10
good.
quarterback but he's a top 10 quarterback in college football is my point. These things happen with college quarterbacks, and it's easy to rip because it's so egregious sometimes with Milroe. But this offense was just never going to work with him, and they never tried.
Yeah,
outside of maybe the first half with Georgia,
or LSU.
I like I said, I agree on one hand. Like, he regressed. I'm not saying he's the greatest quarterback ever. He's the greatest Bama quarterback ever, but the cards were stacked against him this year.
And I'm not going to disagree with it. I think that we've all talked about Nick Sheridan, his inability to properly call a game the right way in the big games, especially. I think we all agree on that. I think we've talked about it a couple of times how Tommy Rees was probably a more vanilla offensive coordinator, but he wasn't a risk taker, and maybe that had a lot to do with it too. So I do see and agree with your point on that too, and I'm praying for a different change at the offensive coordinator position to where that OC, that coach can really utilize the players that you have on your roster, your wide receivers, your quarterbacks, your running backs, and seeing what you have and making the best offense out of all of that.
We're not seeing a new offensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of combo reasons of the play calling. I think limited based on the guy pulling the trigger. I think Sheridan was limited based on his experience, not really knowing how to call a game, so to speak. But I think that there's a reason that you didn't see any of the other quarterbacks in that game against Michigan. Once we got behind, they were going to, obviously, I don't know, try to win the game. I don't know what the thought process was. I don't think he was ever going to pull Milroe in his last game. But I also think that the playbook's not going to be anything like we saw this year. So they didn't want to waste any reps in the game running a playbook that they're going to scrap when that clock hits 0. They're going to basically throw in the trash and start fresh with a different kind of quarterback with a passing threat, which is, DeBoer needs that. I'm thinking to work this offense, you need somebody that is a passing threat, consistent passing threat, more so than a running one.
And you've got 3 choices here with this roster coming up in this.
But
next
I think Keelan brings that blend of both, that he can scramble, but he's also a thrower. I don't know that he's going to win the job. I think he's going to win it outright from the get-go, but it wouldn't shock me if this was like a 2020 year with Ty having kind of a Mac Jones, maybe not that good a season. That was one of the greatest seasons ever, but a good season like that where, Keelan is backing him up, or even Austin Mack, and then,
I see Ty doing it. I really have faith in that. And you know what? I've eaten crow before, time and time again. This year, I've eaten crow quite a bit of times, unfortunately, and that's just the way the nature is of the game now. So,
I'm trying to believe in Ty, but he's been there 3 years and 2 staffs and 2 coordinators and 2 offenses, and can't win a job. Can't win the job. So I don't know if politics played a bunch with Milroe and with Buckner.
A little bit of locker room.
For whatever reason, Ty, they won't start Ty Simpson. So 2 separate staffs now. So I don't know, but I don't think DeBoer really had a choice this year. I think
he didn't.
He had to start Milroe and just ride it out with him, regardless of how piss poor he played in games and how piss poor he played in that Michigan game. But they didn't put him in places to succeed as well, to go with Fonzie was saying, Milroe's dropping back, standing in the pocket, counting to 5. That's not his game. So why are we running plays like that?
Too, just like expanding further on that, he threw 45 passes against Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other games, most of the games he was around 20, 25, maybe under.
Yeah.
That should never happen. That just shows it was very clear they were trying to attack that secondary. I think they had a guy out, and that was their weak point on defense, even though their defense was pretty damn good this year. But I just think the game planning was awful this year. They didn't adjust anything. You may be right. They may be throwing out the playbook, but
and I think the offensive line struggles were rampant
when
too.
they made the national championship, when DeBoer's team made the national championship in Washington, they had the best O-line in the league, which was a big reason that their run game was somewhat effective. But what concerns me is it is a pass-heavy offense. They relied heavily on possession, and they had 3 NFL receivers on that roster. Probably 4, because Jeremy's probably going to go in the 3rd round when he goes.
Yeah.
East.
And a lottery quarterback.
I just think, Milroe regressed. He wasn't great this year. There was a lot of issues with him in particular, but I think he was almost set up to fail as well, just in this system.
Yeah. It wasn't solely on him. It was a combination effort.
And I'm glad y'all brought that up,
just
because
for continuity, but
because I'm not
I have a hard time blaming him, is what I'm saying.
He had his flaws, as I said. Is this completely all on him? Absolutely not. You want to talk about another thing that's detrimental to a team? Your offensive line. They regressed heavily. Since the first game. It got worse.
Heavily.
And
first half Georgia is where they really took a turn.
When you have a quarterback who has his own flaws, okay, but if you have a good offensive line, a lot of that can be masked. And, it gives you more time to make those decisions. Well, when your right and left tackle are consistently getting blown off the ball and people are just free roaming right by him every single play. Now, I'm being facetious when I say that every single play, but it felt like it was every single play. It didn't help anything, and it made rush decisions. And with the guy who's not the best at decision making, it does put you in a position to fail time and time again. So, what kind of changes do I see on that? I mean, I need to see some, because that's where it all starts. It's not just about quarterback. You got to have an O-line that can dominate, especially if you're going to play in the SEC. You do. You got to have ones that are just going to be able to continue to move the line of scrimmage and be able to protect your quarterback, especially on their backside or their blind side. And we saw that time and time again. Him getting just absolutely smacked and him just not seeing the pressure coming and fumbling it or whatever. But also, I mean, that also affected the running game.
Pocket awareness. He lacked pocket awareness, but he didn't have a whole lot of pocket because we couldn't really. I don't know. That was a staff change I was hoping would get made, was the line coach. I think Huff staying with the Seahawks last year hurt more than Grubb hurt us more than Grubb going as well. I think losing Huff was a bigger loss there. The line regressed, I thought. Pritchett hit the portal as soon as, a couple weeks ago or a week ago, whenever it was. He bounced.
I'm glad you brought him up. Dad had mentioned a fantastic stat for me, and I thought I wanted to bring this up to you. The stat line quarterback hurries. Y'all know how impactful that can be, right? Forcing a quarterback to hurry in the pocket, making a quick decision. They graded out our entire O-line starters. Brailsford was the best, our center. He gave up there we go.
Hold tight, Howard.
I think they said Brailsford only gave up maybe 3 or 4 total quarterback hurries the entire year. That's great. You got your 2 guards. They were at like 6 apiece, which is not bad. You had Proctor, who was like, I think it was like 10, maybe 11. Not on the uptick. What do you think Pritchett's numbers were?
Is Howard onto it here? Is that 6?
6 sacks. He did allow 6 sacks on that side. Yes, quarterback.
But he had numerous penalties. He was. I don't know. Formby had such a bad game that one game.
He had that one awful game. Yep.
That one awful game, and almost like got typecast as Chris Capps 2.0.
So Proctor had, I think I said 11 or 12 quarterback hurries that were his fault. It may have been up to 15, but obviously.
What is this number? Howard screaming 31. What is this number?
Thank you. Elijah Pritchett had allowed 31 quarterback hurries. That's literally
That's insanity.
Insane.
That's Dan Moore territory right there, Fonzie.
Yes. I'm literally looking.
Dan Moore's better than that.
I'm looking at the stat. My dad says this to me, and I'm like, what the hell did you just say? That's more. Nobody's even close to that stat. So, liability on the offensive line. I wish him the best. If whoever picks him up, just be remembering, he's not too great on fast edges.
What's so crazy though is that game that Formby was so terrible. When they put Pritchett back in, he dominated. Like that turned the momentum of that game. Wow. So it's like, okay, well, we got a right tackle now. And then he regressed as the season got. I don't know if he was dinged. I don't know if he just, I don't know. The competition got better, as the season went on.
31 times.
He went to Nebraska. Okay.
Oh, is that where
is that where Pritchett went? Is that what he said?
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I was about to say you'll be dealing with a lot slower players. I can tell you that, but still going to be dominant. Good luck. What's his name? Dylan Raiola, that quarterback up there. Is that him?
Yeah.
Be running for freaking life.
Georgia kid. Yeah. I looking ahead for 2025, you'll notice the defensive players coming back. Now Jihad had to go pro. He coming back wouldn't have done anything for him.
Yeah.
So he had no choice but to go pro there. But Deontay coming back, I think. Jefferson coming back. Keenan coming back. These are big. LT coming back. They got the transfer from Florida. Damani's coming back. All these defensive starters are buying into something because they're all, they're coming back. Dijon Lee's coming in. I think he's going to get in the cornerback mix.
Sabian
Keon Sabb coming back, playing with Bray back there. The bookend safeties back there. I mean, we've got
that Hill Green kid from Colorado can play too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a linebacker, Nikhil.
Yes,
Green.
And these guys all had to cut their teeth this year. And if you'll notice, you remember early in the season, we were giving up a ton of deep throws. Now the quarterbacks weren't connecting, but the play was there. We were beat several times. And I think that, but you'll notice that was not happening the last 6-7 weeks of the season, the last 6 games or so. We were not getting torched like that. I think Mbakwe gave up a deep one, somebody. But for the most part, the defense was really rounding into form. At the last, month and a half, 2 months of the season. I mean, that Michigan game should have been 28-0 in the first quarter, as opposed to 13.
Yeah, they didn't have a
scoring
drive over 50 yards the whole game.
Right. It was like 3 possessions inside the 15, and I think we'd run 3 plays or something like that. I mean, it was just insane. And the defense just played great. They played great against Tennessee. They've turned them over 3 times in a half, and we got 0 points out of it. That's not the defense's fault. The defense didn't play terrible against Oklahoma. Sure, Jackson Arnold, lightly jogged for 125 yards, but they still only scored 17 points. Millie gave them 6 on a pick 6, but they still only scored 17 points. I mean, you should win a game if you're held to 17 points. Your offense should be able to win a game. And so I thought the defense was really rounding into form, and all these guys coming back next year. So they believe in whatever Kane Womack's preaching to them down there. Those guys are believing in it. And the only guys transferring out are backups. A couple of offensive starters, Pritchett, and was there one other one?
I mean, you're talking like Ball and people like
Bertrand.
that.
Yeah. Oh, the long
line,
snapper?
He was I think he was gone from the team. He was that tackle from A&M that transferred in.
Yeah.
Beltran.
Law.
Yeah.
Prentice, obviously. A few of those guys. But, I mean,
man.
That's another thing talking about.
I
won't get hung up on Milroe again, but so many of these guys just didn't execute when they got opportunities.
We're duds.
There is a lot of problems with this team. Obviously, the Milroe turnovers were egregious, but sometimes he did do the right thing and guys didn't make plays. Even Ryan Williams down the stretch was having drop issues.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he dropped three gimme touchdowns from Milroe, and he dropped 3 of those. Of course, one of them he got he got another one taken from him, but still, I mean, you're right. He was a non-factor really the last couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, what do you have? 2 catches for no yards or something like that? I mean, it was like a George Pickens game. I mean, Saturday. I mean, he was just a non-factor. And I don't know if he hit that wall, if he was dinged up, or just, I don't know, just ground up. He's a junior in high school. He should be supposed to be a junior in high school, for crying out loud, or a senior in high school. So
we just really need one of these other guys to pop next year. We need another big play threat on this offense, and I think we'll get it.
I agree
with everything we've talked about. But Tennessee, for example, we were just so desperate to hit a big play. We threw him the ball 20 times. It's like
trying to get him killed.
Yeah, unless it's Devontae Smith against Ohio State. We don't need to be doing that. It's just,
the difference there was the closest guy to Smitty was like 4 or 5 yards away.
Yeah.
Williams was getting blown up every time he tried to catch it.
Yeah. I mean, anyway.
Mac was hitting him in the hip pocket too.
About just the garbage that was this offense this year. But
yeah, it was a whole poop show of stuff. I mean, Milroe will get the bulk of the blame because the quarterback gets all the credit and the quarterback gets all the blame.
And there were
many failures. There were many failures around him that contributed, along with his, which led to some of the worst games we've ever seen.
Fan since he's been the starter, but I'll just say it right now: like when he's bad, he's bad. When he throws, when he commits a turnover, it's shit. I mean, it's one of the worst plays you've seen. When he's on, he's incredible. But
yeah,
the last half of this season in particular, he was never really on. It's just LSU somehow didn't learn from 23. So he had a great game because, we ran quarterback designed runs the whole game and they couldn't stop it. But teams figured that out. Like I said, teams were stacking the box and it just killed our offense. And, the best way to beat Milroe is to make him make decisions quickly and stick 8 guys in the box. Make sure Ryan Williams isn't on an island and get to him quick and he'll make mistakes.
Yeah. And look at which side that they're not tight end helping, and you're going to get one-on-one with the tackle on the other side. So find that guy, stick your fastest rusher over there and turn him loose.
Yep.
Hey guys, I got to run, but it was a good seeing all of y'all. If y'all need anything, y'all just let me know. But I hope to catch y'all the next time, and we'll reconvene here soon. Okay, guys?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, guys. Bye-bye.
Brother.
But yeah, I'm with you there. It was his bad play was bad.
Yeah.
He was like Quinterly. You know, when we got bad Quinterly in those games, he was just god awful.
Yeah, he was.
But then he might, you know, have one of those games where you can't stop him, and that's like Milroe had those games in him. But
Like
it was just
Scott
never
said,
really
I
bad.
think Reese was the only one that got close to kind of figuring him out, even though it was pretty simple. He's had
Yeah.
in the 3 years he's had 3 different coordinators, so it's kind of hard to develop as a player. I feel like I was a little more frustrated that we didn't utilize some of our other offensive weapons like Bernard or our tight ends like Dupree, who I thought were kind of standouts, and then we just
I
wouldn't
totally agree.
use to utilize them for the remainder of the game. I mean, yes, Williams had an incredible game against Georgia, but I thought he would have benefited more sitting behind Bernard, who's a more veteran, and kind of get to develop that way, as opposed to just let's just keep throwing to him no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, pretty much after Mizzou, Ryan Williams wasn't a huge factor. He had a big play against Auburn. You know, he had a big play against Oklahoma, but he was pretty much boom or bust anyway, and that's just kind of the way he played. You know,
That's how the offense felt in general. You know, just like we're either going to hit a big play or we're going to punt. You know, we're never going to grind out any drives, and we had a few here and there, but I felt kind of same way there. We just never. It was kind of boom or bust.
Yeah, I never really understood that. It's like if he's having an off game, that's okay. We have other offensive weapons that are on the field and are good. Like, man, Bernard was fantastic, and Dupree was fantastic. We would use him.
Bernard was our most.
Dupree was a walking first down.
Oh,
like every time the guy touched the ball,
I was so excited to see Bernard on the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a great year.
Even Cuevas, dude. Cuevas was even catching balls, you know? I mean, he was a threat. I'm not saying he was Travis Kelce, but, you know, prime Kelce, but he was a threat. And CJ Dupree, man, that guy was a first down. Every time he caught the ball, it was a first down.
We would do that. And then, all right, let's never see him again for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, and then it would be 3.5 quarters before he'd throw him the ball again.
Yeah. The
guy just had a 22-yard catch and run. Like, let's see if this works.
Yeah, that's enough of that. Let's never see him.
We need him to block. We need all the tight ends in here blocking.
Yeah.
I just got sick of watching us hand the ball to Jam Miller 3 times on one drive.
Yeah.
Same running.
You know, he'd gain 20 yards. Nice, efficient runs. Maybe throw in an explosive run every once in a while. And then he just wouldn't touch the ball. And then to throw him on a dive.
Yeah.
With 8 guys in the box. And, you know, it's just, there was so much wrong with this. And I could go on and on. Going back to Milroe, like, I keep harping on it, but I just have a hard time blaming him completely for this year. Individual plays, maybe, but I think we were just very, very easy to read. And I think he did tip plays. I think Clint Lamb posted a video. You know, I think he was tipping plays, which is obviously a no-no.
You're talking about
at the same time, I think a lot of these teams knew what was coming, even if he wasn't tipping them. It's like, you know, it's just anyway.
I think they knew where Milroe could hurt him, deep or running, and so they took that away, and you're left with a very average quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
When you take away the 2 things he does the best, you're left with somebody trying to do something he can't do. And then you get, like you said, Fawn, you get these just awful games, you know? I mean, 5-4 to close the season. That's terrible. You know, he didn't play terrible against Vanderbilt. He made some bad individual plays, but overall he was, you know, he wasn't terrible against Vanderbilt. Defense blew dog that game. But, you know, the other 3 losses, he was just awful. And you can't overcome, you know, the bad plays, and the turnovers were killing us.
Yep.
But he wasn't put in a big position to succeed. They weren't doing him a bunch of favors by having him stand in the pocket for 7 seconds to try to diagnose a defense and then make the read when he's only got 4 seconds to throw. But in his head, he's thinking 6. And then you get bang, hit from behind or stripped, sacked. And they just never helped him. They never bootlegged him. They never rolled him out left or right.
Even a lot of these one reads were just poorly executed,
Right.
Like guys jumped some routes and he shouldn't have threw it. But at the same time, it's like you could tell like the receivers, someone didn't do their job. It was just, I don't know what it was. I just don't think Sheridan, maybe he could be a really good offensive coordinator in the future. I don't think he's that guy right now. I wish DeBoer, and I don't know, maybe he did step in and call plays at times, but I really wish DeBoer would just take the reins of this offense. If he's not going to bring someone else in, I really wish he'd get a lot more involved in this offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're going to see a lot different look next year. I think the defense is going to be really the strength, and then the offense is going to improve. I mean, I'm not saying we had a bad offense this year, but it'd be hard for the offensive game plan and complete clustery to be any worse than it was this year.
Just
if we could just if we could just improve our ability to adapt, because I almost felt like we would go into some games and the playbook we had is that's it. If it's shot, it's shot. That's just the play.
But we're gonna keep pounding away at it.
Yeah, we'll keep trying.
Yeah, but it didn't work. It's not working still. It's very similar to my NFL team.
You're right, Murph. It felt like we scripted like the whole game. Usually you'll script to like a drive or two. It felt like we scripted the whole game.
Or like the first 15 plays you'll have scripted and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think we scripted like 148.
Yeah.
In case we needed them. It's like, there was a lot of games. You're exactly right, where there was just no adjustment. It was.
We scripted 148.
I don't understand. Like, I know Milroe. We talked about Milroe was limited in what he could do. He excels very well at two things, as you said, Jeff: passing the ball deep and running the ball. It's what he does.
Yeah. Very well.
We did not get creative with that at all. It's first year under a new head coach.
Totally with you.
It is what it is. I'm not losing sleep over it. I wish it went better. But my God, it was rough.
Well, and we should have thrown more deep shots, but we had other guys that can run fly routes other than Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
There was speed on the team.
Gosh, there's times I felt like Williams was in double, triple coverage, and for some of his interceptions, because they eventually just figure out, don't worry about Bernard or Dupree, just cover that.
He's not going to throw it to him. He's got one. They know beforehand where he's going.
Yeah, and you don't do
tell by his eyes pre-snap where he's going, and then they would just cover. And then it was just too easy to defend him when he wasn't like pissed off like he was against LSU, where he wasn't just running with authority and conviction. And knowing I'm better and faster than all these guys, they're not tackling me here. And he whenever he ran like that, he was a different player. And I feel like we only got that a few times this year. And then the other times he was just almost running because he was supposed to, not because he was wanting to.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So anyway, but I wish him all the best. My problems with Jalen Milroe were never personal. It was just about his quarterback play. So I wish him the best in the NFL, or, I hope somebody takes a chance on him. I hope he makes his money, and I hope he finds a position. I hope he learns how to play quarterback. That'd be great.
I think the best thing for, him being QB2, QB3 even.
Yeah, go learn at the NFL.
Behind a veteran,
Go learn in the NFL, and then learn how to be quarterback there. But that was always just my issue with him. I just was critical of his quarterback play, but I'm happy that he was an ambassador for the school. He was a good ambassador for the school, for the, held the team together in the transition. He was always a Bama guy. I believe that. So I wish him all the best, but I'm ready for him not to be the quarterback of my team anymore.
I agree. That probably shocks you guys. I like Milroe, I think, more than anyone else on this podcast. And that's all right. I accept his weaknesses. Fully transparent about them. We may disagree on why he has them, but
Sure.
I absolutely think someone's going to take a chance on him.
They
likely
will.
in the first 2 rounds, and I just hope they approach him correctly because I think he's a great guy and a great athlete, and
He can be made into a quarterback.
he has a great mindset too. I think.
Yeah.
So I think he has everything that appeals to NFL teams. I just hope, again, they address the situation properly and try to develop him instead of thrusting him into the NFL because he is
develop
not
him
ready.
to his strengths.
I won't
That's
be
what,
for 2 years.
another thing. Yeah.
And I think getting a good
see what he
coordinator
does
in
well.
NFL will be able to do that. And even if it's not a quarterback, he's too athletic to just let go to waste. I think he'll be just fine. As
I
opposed
believe
to
a lot of
Carson
guys are.
Beck, where Carson Beck is
Yeah.
a quarterback or bust. That's just who he
Yeah.
is.
Well, I think Milroe's freak athleticism, somebody's going to take a chance on it. Somebody's going to roll the dice on it and say, hey, give me the athleticism. I can mold him into a quarterback. I can build some around him. Can't coach that speed, or whatever. So yes, he's going to get drafted. He's going to get a shot. And I wish him the best. I hope he develops and doesn't get rushed onto the field, is able to learn behind somebody and learn the other side of playing quarterback in the NFL, not just between the numbers.
I can name you probably about 7 NFL teams that are in a dire quarterback situation. So, yeah.
I mean, God, even the teams that aren't draft them now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like if you aren't a top 10 quarterback by the time you're 24, you might as well just pack it up.
It's just
'cause
crazy.
You're going to be
Yeah,
a swing starter or backup the rest of your career. The NFL is just out of control.
Scott, I
Anyway.
think you were the one that said it. Like, everybody's just been chasing Patrick Mahomes, but people forget that Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. It's like you can't just bank on one player saving your franchise. It's just not.
And people don't address the fact that they hit on Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill when Patrick Mahomes came in. Like,
Yeah.
when they had Travis Kelce, like those teams were sick. He had a great offensive line.
Chris Jones been
Once you start winning,
wonderful.
Andy Reid can build a squad now.
Yeah.
that team is. I mean, Mahomes has not had a great year, and they're still
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like,
They've shifted defensively. Defensively, they're a nightmare in the playoffs, man. Chris Jones is kind of ho-hums his way through the season, and then the playoffs hit, and he just takes games over. You
yeah,
just can't block the guy.
yeah.
I wish TJ Watt would do that.
There. Well, sometimes he does, but problem is
Sometimes he does.
we need the rest of the defense to kind of pick it up too. Help him.
Yeah,
out.
that's been I don't know, Fonzie, if it's the Terrell Austin part of it or if we're just overpriced defense. I mean, all of our money is on the defensive side of the ball, and they've looked terrible in the last month. Just
I think it's a
terrible.
lot of what happened the past few years, though, where the other team's just possessing the ball, our offense can't move it, and they're just gassed.
They're
I mean,
just
this
worn
isn't
out.
a young defense,
Right.
which is a factor. We don't have many guys contributing that are young. By
Yeah.
NFL standards, it's an old defense. It's a very good defense. I think pound for pound, just looking at strictly the players and the talent, it's probably top 3 in the league. It's just,
Yeah. Well, our best defensive lineman's 36.
yes, yeah, that's what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
Ogunjobi's not young. Benton is probably the youngest true contributor. Him and JPJ, but Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen aren't exactly young anymore. Peyton Wilson is. There's just not a lot of young talent on this defense. Yeah. And, Highsmith needs to pick it up, is my personal opinion, too.
I've never been the biggest Highsmith guy. He to me, he has his moments, but more often than not, he seems to me that he just blows up the field, like blows past the quarterback, and all the quarterback does is just, step 2 steps up in the pocket and the whole left side of the field's open because Highsmith's blown 5 yards up the field.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that's just the few times I focus on him, but that's just been a peeve of mine, is that he always seems to go too far up and leave that gap behind him open.
He's good. Don't get me wrong. But I agree. I just think he's not consistent enough. When he's good, like TJ plays really well. And it used to be very consistently, TJ would pull double teams and Highsmith would take advantage of that. He just hasn't been doing it as much. And I think it's just killing.
I think Nick Herbig has done more of that than Highsmith this year, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it hurts TJ so much because that's what he excels at, obviously, is rushing the passer. When he has to fight double teams 50 times a game,
when he's not like Reggie White, 320-pound guy, he's like 240, 250, 260, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Going against double teams, and these tackles are 340 pounds. You can't just bull rush these guys all the time.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's the offense is what is so hard to watch.
Yep, you're right.
I mean, just consistently every year, the same story, and just watch it cripple the team as the season goes on, and the defense, just like you said, gets gassed out by the end of the year. They're just shot. I don't know. It's like new coordinator, new quarterback, same problem.
I don't know. I think a lot of it, Arthur Smith has not called great games recently in particular. I think he's miles better than Matt Canada.
Russ has played bad too.
But Russ, I was just going to say, Russ has been really, really bad these past 4 weeks. And he played himself into a contract and then played himself out of it.
Like right out of one.
Yeah. Unless he lights the world on fire against Baltimore Saturday. And then we play a really good game in the next round against presumably, I don't know, Buffalo. I haven't looked at the bracket, but
please no. That would be in Buffalo too.
Yeah.
And how old is Russ at this point? I mean, he's only got X amount of years left.
37, 38.
Yeah, he's like 36 or 37. I think he's 36.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, his numbers aren't terrible, but he just made some of the worst decisions in game that you wouldn't expect a guy of his pedigree and his experience to make.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, what are you thinking, man? Like, I mean, just an example, the end of that game, instead of running out of bounds, he lowers his shoulder and stays in bounds, and burns what? How much time off the clock did he burn?
30 seconds.
30 seconds? Yeah, it's just run out of bounds, dude.
Yeah, that showed us. And I mean, obviously Pickens didn't have his best game, but
everything was just off. It's just
like I said, in our little group chat, like it was cold and windy. I left that morning. It was cold as hell. It's miserable. And Russ is throwing balls high. George probably should have caught 2 of those, but 2 of them were knocked away. One was just egregious. But
yeah,
didn't seem like Joe did much better either.
Everyone was dropping balls. Joe Burrow was just checking down the whole game, and we were playing so far off the line and so far downfield that they were pick up 10 yards every time he checked it down. To Drew Sample and Mike Gesicki. I mean,
Gesicki looking like prime Gronk.
Yeah, like you hold Chase to under 100 yards, I'll call that a win.
Yeah,
with Corey Trice being on him, gave up 19
on an island
to that offense. But like, I just don't know how we watch them doing that, and then we don't say, maybe we should just get Jalen Warren behind a couple of these offensive linemen and give them the football. See if we can't scrape up 10 yards. I don't know.
Here's what kills me, Fonzie. Short yardage situations, or they have Warren in the game and they're running power running plays.
Yeah.
And then they run a toss sweep to Najee. And it's like, what are you doing here? Like, this is, am I crazy? Or You've got a power back and you've got an open field back, and you're like the plays are reversed for him. And what a shock. They don't work very well.
Yep.
I don't get it. Or it's critical third downs and Cordarrelle Patterson is getting the ball.
Yeah, that stuff needs to stop. He didn't touch the field in the first 3 quarters, and I was like, wow, we actually didn't really like use him a lot. You know, when he's healthy, we tend to throw him in there and he gets the ball, you know, a fair amount, not a ton, but
yes.
Then the fourth quarter, it's like, all right, now it's time to bring him in.
Now it's Patterson time, baby.
Now we gotta. It's just unreal. I mean, it's a 33-year-old running back. Give it a break.
It's killing me, man. That's all I can do is laugh sometimes because I'm like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, what am I watching? I don't got.
Mike Williams toe taps. Pickens is having trouble with drops, so we just keep running Pickens out there, giving him the deep shots after Mike Williams.
Yes,
made a play that's going to be on SportsCenter. I don't know.
The Mike Williams thing is mind blowing. They're like, no, Van Jefferson is a much better option than featuring Mike Williams in any capacity. What? You traded for him? No. He needs more time to learn the offense. What offense? Put him in the game. He makes plays. What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, he's had his issues as an NFL player, but he has 2,000-yard receiving seasons.
Yeah, and look who our receivers are.
NFL receiver. Van Jefferson is a fine 4. Should not be your 2.
No.
Mike Williams can at least fill that role to an extent.
Yeah.
Relatively well. I just don't understand it.
I don't either. It's mind blowing to me. It's I've been trying to understand it for really since 2016, really about why we can't. How every season goes the same, and it all goes back to really Ben's last year when he couldn't throw, so we were just running nothing but 2-yard outs and those quick bubble screens because he couldn't throw the ball anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's like we never have gotten out of that. Every now and then Russ will throw a moon ball and we'll get something, but for the most part, it's just this. 3rd and 8, we run a 6-yard route. 3rd and 4, we run a 2-yard route. 3rd and 3, we throw the 1-yard pass. We're always 2 yards behind the sticks in every situation. I mean, I don't know. You got little Scotty Millers out there running routes. Like, come on, man. Mike Williams can't get on the field, but we got Scotty Miller getting snaps and Cordarrelle Patterson getting handoffs, but Mike Williams can't get on the field. Okay.
Pickens, Austin, and Williams should be the 3.
That should be the 3. And I like Austin. He's really come around. Like, that guy's a threat.
He is. He makes plays.
But
it's a threat with the ball in his hands.
There's no reason why the offensive line should not be able to protect. They've got the talent. Of course, they did hire the worst offensive line coach in football 2 years ago, Pat Meyer. But, I mean, they've drafted linemen in the first, second round for like 5 straight years, and they can't block anyone. Or they're penalized. Or, we can't open a hole. Handanaji, 1 yard. In fact, he's had 4,000-yard seasons in a row, and the only guy to do it in the last however many years, despite Troy Aikman trying to discredit it on live TV. But, I mean, they decline his option, so they're going to lose him. But where else are you going to find a 1,000-yard back for $7 million if they'd have picked up his option? I don't know.
Could still sign him. I mean,
still could.
I don't think they will.
I thought he and Warren were a good compliment, almost like Le'Veon and James Conner. Mm-hmm. I thought that was they played off each other well. Same with these two. I don't understand why you would. I don't know, but I don't know what they're doing up there. I try to explain it, but I can't. Anyway, digress.
If they pick another running back in the first 2 rounds, I'm gonna blow my lid.
They're taking Scatabo. You watch.
They will too. Yeah.
Yep. Only if he's in the second round. First round, they're going defensive lineman, I'm sure.
Which they should. I think that's the move right now. Unless they want to get another corner. But
Yeah.
D-line is a strong draft right now, and I think the top end talent is really good. Usually when it's a deep draft, I say just wait, but that's the one position where I think you could get a really good player late in the first round.
Yeah. There's some good defensive linemen in the draft for sure.
What's y'all's first pick? Have they shown that part yet? Yes.
Well, it'll be around the 20s.
Yeah, it's not
18 to
determined.
20.
I guess,
say
yeah, because y'all was
playoffs.
Playoffs, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what we do. We're good enough to get the playoffs, not good enough to win any games, and we pick around 18 to 20.
it's
that's what we've been
slightly
doing for
reach.
years.
Slightly reach, but addressing
We
need.
traded up and got Devin Bush, which looked like a good move for about a year and a half,
And then he tore his ACL and
then he
never
blew
wanted to
his
play
knee
football
out.
again.
and lost whatever desire he had to play football. But for that year and a half, I thought we had that dude. I was like, our middle linebacker problems are solved for at least the next 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that Shazier injury, that was a crusher for a bunch of reasons.
Yep.
Of course, I'm still not over them not taking CJ Mosley there instead of Shazier, but I digress. I pitched a fit when we took TJ Watt instead of Reuben Foster. That shows how,
Yeah. that
I
worked
had to
out
eat some
pretty
crow
well.
on that one. But
Big
in that
change.
moment, I was mad as hell.
Yeah. No, that was
But
the
that's-
pick too. Everyone thought
Yeah.
we were gonna get Reuben Foster.
Yeah. Which
Glad
at
we
the
didn't.
time, he was a wrecking ball at the time. Of course, his career got derailed, and TJ Watt's obviously a Hall of Famer. So that all worked out. But in that moment in that draft, I was pissed off that we didn't take Eddie Lacy, that we took Le'Veon Bell. That made me mad. Once again, turned out to be the right choice. And then he lost his mind and it fell off the rails. But anyway. Well, boys, we've been rolling on for about an hour and a half almost. So it was a good night. Good night to catch up on some things. Good to hang out with you guys and at Parker's wedding. That was a good time. That band kicked ass. I'm not gonna lie. That was a good band. They played some good
Yeah,
tunes.
it was.
Yeah, they did. But anyway, so you guys have a good week. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Full time.